Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadgets. For all your fine quality kayak fishing accessories, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, cooler, and lighter. Go to pelican.com. And the 153 Bait Company. For all your hard and soft bait needs, go to the 153angler.com. Now let's join our special guest around the campfire. Welcome back, everyone. Feather and Fur. Brad here, of course. Tonight we have on Jason Heffler with Swamp Buck Camo, a cool little camo company based out of Wisconsin. So we're going to bring him right on in. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, Brad. Thanks for being on.
Absolutely. I'm real excited to have you on. Met you at Bowfest, and you got a crazy little camo pattern out there, which I've never seen. And I think it's really cool, and I wanted to talk to you about it.
No, I appreciate it. We get great feedback on it. We're friends, so a lot of people are seeing us for the first time, and it's this kind of our breakthrough year. Still very small, running out of our house still, but for the first time we're buying a new trailer, a new warehouse, and we're gearing up for the future is looking up now that we've got our manufacturing and processes behind us.
Very nice. I mean, that's always a key, right? You got to be able to manufacture what you want to sell, and if you're having, everyone has supply issues right now. So let's take COVID year out of it. But you got to get that durability down. You got to get your pattern down. You got to get your fit and your finish down. And that all takes time. That doesn't happen overnight.
No, you're exactly right. When we first got in it, we had, of course, I'm not from the fabric industry. My career's been made in medical device sales, and just been a hunter by hobby, by passion, right? And started playing around with starting a hunting business. Didn't know which exactly way I wanted to enter the market, but I knew I wanted to pursue my passion that way. And we've learned a lot. It took probably 2-3 years of legal, where we had to protect our patents, we had to trademark our name, we had to copyright our pattern, and then you enter into fabric assembly, which is a whole different world, and a lot of that's overseas. So we have learned a lot, and we've been in business about 7 years, but really it's only been the past 3 years with the true functional pattern, the one that you've seen that we started talking about, and we're starting to invest more, and it's starting to make a difference.
Yeah, the pattern's really cool. I mean, that's really what camo's about, right? And you took a really unique spin on a pattern, and it's almost like a logo pattern throughout a whole thing, creating camouflage. I mean, that's kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. We've got the two patterns. The one that we started with has kind of turned out to be a novelty pattern. It was never meant to be a pattern to be used in the woods, but something that stood out from the rest that kind of highlight. We call it the passion pattern.
Sure.
A friend from high school. He's a graphic arts guy. He's hunted, but he's not a hunter. We put it, and we kind of went the traditional route that most things do, where you go overseas. We got to market, if you will, what we wanted. The back and forth in the overseas and some of the language disconnections. We got close, but it wasn't exactly what we wanted. But it's a great entree into the market. The logo, and the name, really catches people, especially deer hunters, right? Swamp Buck, and we got a fantastic logo based on this guy right here. That's the logo is based on that deer right there on the wall. We call him Ike.
That's awesome.
Gary Barden of Gary Barden's Designs just nailed the logo and helped me with that original pattern. And based on that, just the feedback we were getting, everybody likes it, but they're like, if you want some really good people in the industry is like, hey, if you want to build a brand, you don't want to build it, or it's going to be hard to build it on a novelty pattern. You really got to build it on a functional camo pattern. And I agreed. So after hearing that, we pursued an artist to make the functional pattern, which is the one that you've seen as well. And we get great feedback on that. It is really, really good. It has, multiple depth to it. And it has a massive visual confusion, which is all you want your camo to do. You have a plaid hat on,
Right.
today, right? That's the
Right.
traditional camo, right? And that actually works. It really does. You just have to have some type of pattern that breaks up your silhouette, right? That's why we hunt on trees and brush behind us. But if you just stood in a solid color, you'd stick out. You need some kind of pattern to break up your silhouette, and we think we have a pattern that really does that as good as anything out there. It's kind of a homage to the traditional camos, of the past.
Sure.
Plus the more modern ones like of the world.
Yeah, I mean, we can pull them up here for the Facebook, and we can bring them up one at a time here. Let me get this going here. We'll bring up your passion pattern first, so everyone can see that. It's really, really cool. For everyone
exactly.
For everyone that is listening, if you're at home or on your computer or not driving, his website is swampbuckcamo.com. So if you want to browse this while you're listening to us, it's swampbuckcamo.com. And you can see all the patterns on there, the originals, and the two other ones we're going to touch are the same two other color options on his actual hunting camo. But for those on Facebook and YouTube right now, you can see the passion one. It's really a cool design. Just like, you're right, it's not I wouldn't wear it hunting, but it's really that unique, like, hey, there's a whole bunch of deer in there.
Yeah, exactly. That was what we wanted to do. Duck Dynasty did something like this. And they were a little bit of an inspiration for me to get into the hunting business. I think we all enjoyed the show, and the goofiness of it. But I really admired that they were able to, work in their hobby or their passion. So we came up with this camo, and you should see some of the early designs. I mean, they were pretty bad, right? And we ended up with something that we liked. And it's fun. And a lot of times, especially like the hats, like you showed there, the shirt, that same pattern's on the hat, but of course it's more condensed. And a lot of people, we have one of the hats, right? A lot of people don't see the deer right away, when it's a little bit smaller pattern. So it's fun, it's a true novelty pattern, and people love to show that they're hunters. It's something they wear on their sleeve, so to speak, right? They don't hide their passion for hunting. And this allows them to do that.
Agreed. We can bring up that hat real quick. I should have probably worn it tonight, but I was real excited to wear my new Leinenkugels hat. So I picked this one up, and I was up close to your neck of the woods.
Is it a Stormy Grommer?
I don't know if it's
exactly. I'm originally from there.
It's not a Stormy. I have two Stormies. This is a Brist. I've never heard of them, but no, it's not a Stormy. But I am definitely a fan of the Stormies.
Good. I'm not offended. If you're wearing a Leinenkugels hat, you're good with me. That's totally cool.
All right, that did not work, but let's try to bring that hat up again, see if my computer wants to not have issues. There we go. So that hat is I actually wore that hunting this past weekend out on the Mississippi for ducks. That was my companion for this weekend for my hat choice. And I agree. I mean, you've got that great logo on the front. I mean, the logo's great, but then you get the camo pattern behind it. And until you get close, you don't really know what you're actually looking at.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we were going for. The shirts, even though I'm very happy with them and people like them a lot, I didn't get that effect, right? The deer were too big. And that was kind of the communication back and forth. It just didn't come through. And we just had to fish or cut bait. So we chose to go with it. And those shirts are pretty popular. We actually give them away at a lot of our events. I think the Bowfest that we met, we were giving them away to just people come by to raise awareness for the brand. And people love them. Again, the people love to show. If you're a deer hunter, and I realized this when I was even in medical sales, I get to work with some of the brightest minds in cardiology and cardiac surgery. And if I go into their office and talk with them, and they have a hunting picture on the wall, I know at some point we're going to be able to talk hunting, and that conversation is going to change, right? Because people of all walks of life, it doesn't matter how successful you are, what class you're in. If you enjoy hunting, we all have something in common, and we're going to talk hunting at some point at the conversation. And when we do, it just changes your relationship with that person in an early.
Did I lose? Oh no, I got a little staticky there for a second. I caught your conversation. I caught what you were saying though, and I agree 100%. But once you find that mutual ground, and hunting is such a very strong mutual ground. I mean, you find out someone hunts, it's like now we share a bond. Because I mean, it's kind of I mean, people say numbers are up constantly, but overall, historically, it's a downward trend. So I mean, I find more hunters are banding together rather than like complaining about more numbers. And I feel like there is a big focus on retention and getting new hunters involved. So you're right. When you do stumble into someone that you've never met before and they're wearing some sort of camo shirt or something, or you get the vibe, or you know that they hunt, I mean, that conversation definitely becomes far more relaxed. It becomes extremely more personal, and you start swapping stories before you even know what happened.
Yeah, no, you're into hunting stories, and then the reason why you came in, at least for me in my business, my med device business, that all of a sudden takes a back seat, and everybody wants to talk about the hunting stories, and that's part of hunting, right? Is the stories, the camaraderie that you have during the hunt, especially in Wisconsin, where deer hunting is such a rite of passage, right? It's a family oriented, or at least it was, and I hopefully we're hanging on to that as long as we can, but it's definitely a team sport, right? The time at the cabin, the time at the deer camp is as precious as the time in the woods.
Agreed. And like I've said numerous times on this show, and I probably I say it so much I might even be able to change the title. I mean, it's really about the experience. It's not necessarily about taking an animal. It's the entire experience, and that's just a small part of it. I mean, it's everything from watching the sun come up to watching the sun go down to watching the animals, and not even just if you're out in the woods deer hunting, or if you're sitting in a tree. I mean, it's watching the squirrels, it's watching the birds, it's watching that woodpecker destroy that dying tree and drive you crazy with the constant da, 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 da. I mean, it's all of it. And all of that just makes the entire experience. And that's kind of how I always feel. I'm like, I'm always chasing that experience.
Yep. No, well said. And unfortunately, people who judge hunting or only know hunting from the hunting shows, which they're those are great, right? We all enjoy those as hunters, but that just captures the peak moment, right? The 10 seconds. You hunt all day for 10 seconds, potentially, right? Where that buck comes in, and they're only there for a brief amount of time. You've got a moment, a window to shoot. Well, that's maybe it's truly a fraction of your hunt. It's a fraction of your day.
I mean,
trying to be quiet as you can,
Right. I mean, that kind of brings, no, you're good. That kind of like that, it touches back on a point from my last week's podcast where it was, he made a reference to This Old House, how they rebuild a house in 30 minutes, yet they spent weeks there. And you get that in those hunting shows too. And we touched on that, but I mean, you don't experience the entire thing they do. You see 30 minutes of could be days worth of hunting, and you get this little highlight reel, but you don't, and you experience part of what they see, but you'd only get a sliver of that whole, of everything they experienced, from the challenges to the highs, to the lows, to the success, to the outright defeat on certain days.
Yeah. No, that's why the shows that show you their failures, I think we all enjoy those too, because we've all, made the noise at the wrong time. We go and reach back to grab the bow, and doink, you hit something, boom, there's spook. That happens to all of us. You drop your release, down, you got to get down and get it. I mean, that all that stuff happens all the time. And then when they show that on the shows, I appreciate that, because that's a real hunt. That's hunting, right? And that's part of the story that occurs later, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or when you're sitting in your tree stand and you got a doe watching you like a hawk, and there's a buck following her, and there's just no possible way you can grab your bow, and you're making that decision where it's like, do you try
Do
and
you go?
spook them, or because of course it's early enough in the hunt, so you get this choice. It's like, do you try and hope that doe doesn't spook because the buck's running with it, or do you stay perfectly still and hope she circles back?
Yep. That's I mean, that's a common occurrence for every deer hunter, especially an archery hunter that's in a tree. In a blind, you have a little bit more forgiveness, right? But you're in a tree, right. You're exposed. You're hopefully playing the wind right, or you're doing your ozonics or whatever, and you just got to stay as still as possible. That's where the camo part comes in. Like we were talking. If you have something that blends good and again creates that visual confusion, you got to try to, the bet is stay as still as possible. Try to outweight that doe, and it's pretty hard to do when they're radared in.
It's that, and you get the adrenaline flowing, and it's like you're trying to be as quiet as possible. But then anytime I'm trying to be as quiet as possible, I swear I make the most noise possible. So it's like I work against myself. But a good camo pattern, absolute. I mean, if you can hide, now you just have to worry about movement, because movement's easy to spot. I mean, movement's a problem, always will be. I think that's why you got to wait for your opportune times, especially if you're reaching back to get your bow, or if you got your gun on a hanger or anything like that. But camo pattern plays such a huge part. And yeah, I mean, like you said, that visual confusion, and your pattern does a great job. I mean, we can just bring in the one pattern. We can just bring in the one color right away, so people can start to see what we're talking about. And you can kind of explain what you have going on with it.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So the artist we hired, named Stacy Walker, she's made other camouflage patterns. We have a green and a gray. The one you're showing here is our gray pattern. It's actually our most popular pattern. I think people like it for a couple reasons. I know this is the one I wear in the fall for deer. The green one works really well if it's really early season, but deer don't see in color anyway, like we do. So it's more for me, I guess. The gray does a great job of really breaking up your silhouette. And what's nice is it works in the blind too, right? So you don't have to have multiple sets of clothing. This works good in the blind. It works good in the shadows, and it works good in light, because it looks frankly, it looks a little bit like the surface of an oak tree, right? So if you're up in a big tree, it really hides your pattern. And if you gray it out, if you try to look at an image like a deer would see it, they totally lose your silhouette. They can't see you at all. We have lots of pictures of that we put on. If you think about a predator, some of the best predators in the world, like a tiger, doesn't look like its background. It just has a visual confusion. Same for a leopard, right? A leopard doesn't hunt in it's full of spots, right? It just has visual confusion. So to a deer, or the deer family that cannot see in color, it can't really pick out what's going on over there. And that's what our goal was here. So this gray pattern has been really, really popular and kind of different too. That's why I think to the eye of the hunter, because they all have the traditional greens patterns, and the gray works really good for that. And we use that for both early season and late season, but with lightweight gear. And then this one you're showing here is our heavyweight gear, which has basically thinsulate in there, like up to 125 milligrams of thinsulate. And I mean, it's a really puffy jacket that works well, so you can sit and stand a long time, right? That's the other thing you need to do. Right. So that's some of the thing that synthetics do for you. Even though like the flannel we were talking about that you're wearing for your Leinenkugel's hat, that does work. But some of the synthetics, they bring some advantages too, and that's comfort, right? Because it's soft, it doesn't make a lot of noise. And you can pad it really easy. You get some weather resistance for it, if not being fully waterproof. Those that we make are weather resistant, because we've kind of learned that if you make them fully waterproof, which we can do, that's a very easy process. It adds a little bit of cost, not even that much cost, but it also increases your noise, right?
Sure.
As
Sure.
soon as you add that, the little movements now get that corduroy effect, that zit, zit as you go left to right. So we think
Right.
we've got a nice balance there with some weather resistance, which is wind and water, but it's really durable, goes through burrs really good. But it's still soft, and I think you felt it when you're at Boat
Absolutely.
Fest. It's really it's, it doesn't make as much noise.
It was, I mean, it was quiet. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It was a very quiet camo. Even your heavyweight camo wasn't as heavyweight as I mean, I'm not saying it's not warm. I'm just saying it's not super proofy. It's huntable still. It's not like you're gonna. You don't. Yeah. When I tried on your heavyweight jacket, I didn't feel like the Marshmallow Man.
Yeah, yeah, and it's definitely with the archery hunter in mind. I think gun hunting. If you're out with a rifle or your shotgun, I think you can get a little puffier, right? Because you don't need the fine motor skills. So this is definitely more archery leaning. We do have an orange vest that you can put on it, so you can be legal. We have a matching hat, so we do want to still cater to the rifle hunter. I love to rifle hunt. Again, for me, the bow season for me is my season, and then rifle season is my family. We come up to the cabin. Right. I feel like I'm hosting them. I feel like I'm the entertainer. I still want to harvest the deer. Don't get me wrong, but the archery season is my serious season. So one thing we do that's unique is we order these in 30 to 60 allotments. So we don't buy 1,000 at a time. I can't afford to do that. Number one. Number two, we've got a really good new partner that's really easy to work with that allows me to do that. So I get to make changes along the way. And the changes are usually driven by, people contacting us saying, hey, love your stuff. Wish it had this. And then I'm like, hey, that's a great idea. Or right. even myself, last year I had a hunt. We were trying out the cold weather gear for the first hunt, and we were in a tree stand, and I don't have anything for the harness to come through, right? So that's a nice feature. So I'm like, okay, right. I want to add that next year. Just like everybody else, we run it just up your back and over. Well, it came swinging out, to the side, lost it, and makes a noise, hits the ladder that I'm going up. I'm like, okay, every deer, and it's bright, it's right away in the morning. I'm like, good, I just cleared the field next to me. It's gonna be fantastic. I get to sit for the next hour and hope they come back in and forget that I just made that noise. So this year, make my next order. We put a D loop on the front side here, so now it's the pass through, so it can come through the middle of the jacket. So we're a better angle for your harness versus coming out the top of the jacket. Now I can use my hood still. And then when I'm going up my stand, I can actually bring the harness over it and attach to the D-loop. Nice. Little stuff like that. And I don't have to wait for me to sell the next, 500 jackets. I can do that and sell 30 and go right into my new design. So I enjoy that, right? So I like to think we're a hunting company first and foremost that is for hunters, and I welcome and love that feedback. We did the same thing. We sponsored the Wild Outdoors crew this year. They were at Bowfest. I think you might have met them too. But Jay Gregory and Wyatt Gregory and their crew, and they're super good guys to work with. I really, it's been a blessing to get to know them. And to be honest, this whole journey has been very God type stuff going on, that I shouldn't be meeting the people that I'm meeting, things that just happened for, I like to believe things happen for a reason. And I think that's somewhat what's happened here. And I think Jay and his crew are a part of that, but they hunt and Wyatt hunts in a blind. So he wanted just pure black. And I had a problem with that because I'm like, well, Wyatt, that I get it, but you can get black anything. How does that brand Swamp Buck? So I thought about it for a while. I said, what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a camo that bleeds, kind of like the shirt I'm wearing here. It bleeds. If you can see it here.
Sure. Yep.
It actually bleeds away.
Right.
See how it bleeds into black.
Right.
So I did that for a shirt just for him. I said, hey, I'm going to put the camo on the bottom, which is out of the view of the window for the deer, and it's going to bleed away. It'll be black solid top, and that's what he killed a buck already this year with that pullover on. and that's the kind of stuff I love to do. I'm like, I want it to be unique. Swamp Buck, I want that to be a unique brand, an edgy hunting brand, but I want it to be functional too. And so I love doing stuff like that. So now that's something we offer on the website already. That's our fade. We call it our fade to black pullover, and it's made for, people that hunt in a blind.
Sure. And see, that's great that you have so much control over your production, that you're not so deep into inventory, that as you get these changes, or you can just keep going and keep upgrading it. And that's one thing a small company can do compared to some of the larger companies out there, is you can take your design and you can tweak it. And then as you get more people hunting on, be like, oh man, if you had this magnetic closure here, or if you had this there, you can be like, huh, I like that idea, but I'm going to take it and turn it a little bit more into this. And I can have that still before season's even over.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. I've got tons of examples where we've done that. Even on the casual stuff, if we get an idea that maybe looks, like I said, we want to have an edgy brand, a modern brand. So I'll see something. This shirt I'm wearing was inspired by a UFC shirt that I seen, which, that I'm like, hey, I love that. You know what? I think I can do that. And with the art of sublimation, you can do so many cool designs. And within 2 weeks, I had a sample, and now we've got 3 different colors with this kind of fade in, fade out. I guess it's called ombre. My wife tells me that that's actually a style. It's called ombre, but I call it fade because I don't even know how to spell ombre, but I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because I thought it looked cool on this UFC fighter. And now we have it available now. Right. And it took literally a month to get over here.
That's awesome. And it seems like you're actually doing okay with COVID supply issues if you're able to create that design and have it in a month. And I'm sure you still have challenges, but that's actually, for this market right now, that's amazing.
Yeah, it depends on the fabric. We did, Brad, you're exactly right. Early season, we ran out of one of the fabrics we use the most, which is a ripstop fabric. Luckily, we also use a micro suede. That's the one that you've seen. And we tested that last year in Buffalo County in Wisconsin, and I tested it. I mean, I went through some thicket, burrs, everything. I even asked the outfitter, hey, put me in one of these locations that I can really test out my stuff. And he did. He put me through a crazy spot, and it did so well. So we converted our lightweight stuff this spring to that, and that's the lightweight we'll use in early season here too, and it actually works just great. But yeah, we had some concerns with and some issues with supply chain on fabrics, but the sub dye stuff, as long as you have fabric, you can sub dye it, and then you just have to have a good artist. We have a great artist that allows me to do these funky patterns, these funky combos, and right now it's really working. So I think there's always that risk, that if you don't have a couple suppliers, right. So we're always trying to, network that. We still have good contacts in the US. That does drive our pricing up and slows me down because I have to do it a different way. I have to buy the fabric, source the fabric myself, which I used to do, then sub dye it somewhere else, which is how we did it, and then manufacture it. So I can do that too. And there's some unique things we can do that way, make it more custom. But this is pretty good for us right now, and we're really happy with it.
Well, let's talk about because you've kind of hinted. I mean, you have a lightweight, you've got the winter weight, you've got some other stuff. So let's talk about the different options you have for hunting seasons or gear. I mean, let's start with the lightweight stuff. Like, let's learn about the lightweight camo. What is that? I mean, is it waterproof, windproof? I mean, non-insulated at all?
Yep, exactly. So it's actually the same outer shell, which gives me a lot of efficiencies, right? It's a different cut because when you have insulation inside, you have to, you scale it differently for the different size. So a large is still a large, but the cut is a lot different, right? All of our stuff is cut, I would say, almost a fitted cut. Like when you put on the jacket, it's puffy because of the insulation, but it's not a lot of waste. So if somebody's listening or watching and they're interested, just contact us, because we do maybe recommend going a size up for the cold weather gear, because it is cut different. It's more about the cut than anything. But I like this cut better because, as you know, Brad, when you're in stand, if it's too loose, right? Yes, you can layer well, but it lets air in too, right? So I think this is pretty efficient use of the fabric, and it feels good. You're not too wide. You're not the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man like you referenced earlier, right?
Right. And
but the lightweight gear is same outer shell. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I've always preferred, as you call them, I like a more athletic cut. I mean, I don't like baggy sleeves. I want enough to where I can move around, but I don't want a bunch of fabric hanging off my arm that can get into my bowstring. Like, I don't want to wear restraints on my arms so my jacket doesn't get in the way. I mean, that's always, with a lot of different manufacturers, that bothers me, because I'm like, I don't want this big, bulky, extra material. Wrist cuffs are falling over my hands. I mean, and that's something I did like about yours, because it does have that more athletic feel. It has that more, it's that, like you referred to it as the cut. I prefer that style of cut, especially because it still has the mobility without the excess.
Yeah. And that's why the disadvantage that I have is being an online sales only. There's always that, not being able to put it on and not understanding that. So we guarantee all our stuff. Like, if it doesn't fit, we'll replace it. No shipping costs, all that. And I think you have to do that when you're online only. But when we do our shows, that's the best time when we move the most product, because they can actually try it on. They see how comfortable it is, how quiet it is. And then, like you said, the cut.
Right.
So the lightweight gear, though, is just that same outer shell, and it's just a mesh liner. So it is really light. So it does have the same water and wind resistance, not waterproof.
Okay. Sure.
But if you threw a 5-gallon pail of water on, you actually don't get wet. But if you sat in a downpour and it just got to sit on you and slowly soak in, it'll shed. Then eventually you'll eventually get wet. But it's quite a long time. None of us sit and stand that long typically.
Right. I don't.
Yeah, exactly. I used to be of the theory that, deer don't move, when it's that nasty out, unless it's rut,
Sure.
But I've got so many friends that have shot big bucks, in the rain. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to rethink that. Maybe I was just justifying the to me so I could stay in the cabin. Right.
Right.
I know too many now that have shot big bucks in the rain, but so again, it's trade-offs. I could do a fully waterproof, but it's like the fishing gear then, right? It's just too loud, too crinkly, right? So
right.
I think next year we'll go for which a lot of companies do, like an additional layer that you can just take into the woods. That is a traditional, waterproof, but
Sure.
really, really lightweight, like just a shell. And maybe we'll add that next year. But this year, I feel really good about what we have. And again, you just got to consider your trade-offs. And right now we're going to err on the side of soft, quiet, and have some water and wind resistance versus full-on waterproof. Then as you go into our cold weather gear, we do change. The pants go from pants to bibs, which is, sure, I think, especially in Wisconsin, I think that's a critical thing. Covering the back, completely is such. Sure. And a lot of people don't offer these anymore, right? We do have the sides go all the way up, and then we have buttons on the sides so you can walk into stand and not, sweat your, what's off.
Sure.
That's the worst, getting up on the way to the stand. So that too. And then you can zip up once you get there. The small sizes, a couple kids sizes, basic, small and small, those are in pants still, because there's kind of a ways to do a bib on those because they're more expensive to build. But yeah, the cold weather, they're all bibs, and they are warm, right? They do their job, and there should be no air getting in with the bib on, and then the jacket coverage. And then we've got beanies, and we have the accessories. I think we'll still, probably need to improve our accessories. We had gloves last year, and they were well received, but not up to the quality that I really wanted. So we just reset them, and we'll build those again next year. Hats, all investors too, of course, right? And if we get bad feedback, we just kind of take it off the website, and I do clearance items and stuff like that when we do our shows, because we want to have a good product. When you're a small company like we are, I can't afford to have quality issues. So my brand is so important right now to have a good brand. So we try to err on over customer service, and make sure that anything that's out there is really high quality. And if not, I just take it off.
And that makes sense. I mean, I think everyone strives to provide that quality product. I mean, and well, I don't want to say that because sometimes profits get in the way of quality, right? But that's like with being a smaller company, though, like you're able to make those changes. You can be like, this product is not working how we have it designed. Let's try designing it this way, or let's try using this material, or let's tweak this. And you can do it much faster in a more of almost like a real-time environment, rather than waiting, being like, well, we've got 2,000 units sitting here still. I still got to sell these. Yep. We've got this design worked up, but that's going to have to wait for 2020, and we're going to have to do a launch now, rather than you can kind of just introduce it to be like, hey, check out the new upgraded 2021 jacket, rather than like a whole full line launch in 2022.
You're exactly right. That's my sales pitch, right? Is, hey, we're small and nimble, and we're a hunting company for hunters. So next year we'll have a few more iterations that'll be better, and we'll close out hopefully the few that we have left. And as we get bigger, that I'll lose that ability, but I'll also have fine tuned it through the years. So when we get to that point, we're gonna have just a really, really solid product.
Sure. And then you did touch base. We can bring up the green pattern here, because you have the gray pattern, which is great. I really liked the green pattern as well. I thought it would be amazing for I really thought it'd be great in a duck blind.
Yeah, we've had a few. Yeah, this is again, with the more traditional green, it looks fantastic. I think the photo. These are photos that I actually shoot, right, with my camera. But when we have a professional photographer, which we've had to do for some of our field shots, it really pops. There's a lot of depth that you need a high def photograph to really see the multiple layers, and then the top layer is that squiggly pattern, which is what creates the visual confusion. And it's kind of designed to look like the top of an oak. Or even a rifle. If you look at the wood casing, on a rifle barrel, right, or on a rifle stock,
that nice grain. You get that nice grain deep, pattern. Thick grain.
And we can play with that too. Like if you look at this compared to our early version, we've widened it out. And next year we're actually widening it out a little bit more, just to get a little bit more separation. If you look at some of the Realtree stuff and the mossy oak stuff, even though who am I to judge? They're great companies, and I've wore their stuff through the years, but their art is so detailed, so good, detailed. But the more detail you have, the more you actually start to darken the image, right? It looks like in certain lights it looks like a blob, right? So you look like you can see the figure. So the more spread you get, there was a pattern called the ASAT pattern. It's really kind of it was an ugly camo, if you will, but highly functional. And so we're kind of trying to do a little bit of that, widen it out, and again just break up the pattern.
Sure. This is actually maybe a slightly better picture. We'll pull it up from your Instagram page, which we'll touch base on how everyone can see you in a little bit. But that might show it a little better. Like you can really see, like it's more it's more green than your website makes it look, because your website makes it look a little more on the brown side. But there's definitely a lot of green in there, where I could see that being a great turkey pattern, but also a really, really good marsh pattern.
Yeah.
And especially before all the reeds and the cattails die, because there's so much green in that. I see it just being a great pattern for duck. And I know you didn't design it for duck hunting, but it really would be a great duck hunting pattern.
No, we toy and talk about it still quite a bit. It's a different material, right? So we're getting into the neoprenes and such. We've talked about it, and I'd love to do it. It's just about scaling at the right time. So I think we will be in it. I think we'll have an upland brand sometime as well.
Now you're really speaking towards my heart.
Yeah, well, and we talk about it. And we actually have been toying with and actually just launched a fishing shirt. It's our first one with our blue camo with some features there for fishermen. And we're just kind of dabbling now to see, can we do it? And is the quality there? Will it be received well? And,
right.
Or do we have their brand, Buck Commander also did Fin Commander, right? And they kind of broke up their brand a little bit to appeal to that hunting subset. So we'll see what we do. I love the name Swamp Buck, so it's hard to let it go, and I'd love to keep my brand there, but I don't know if that appeals to a fisherman, right? But I think our pattern, I've seen a lot of the hook, stuff, and I put my pattern up with theirs any day. I think it looks fantastic.
We have a ton. This podcast started with kayak fishermen. I'm a kayak fisherman.
Right.
All of us fish tournaments. That's what I was doing the Mississippi River last weekend. Instead of, I wasn't up by the show you were at. We had our own tournament series. We had the Paddle and Fin Championship this past weekend. So, fishing is dear to our heart. I'm the only episode out of all of ours that doesn't talk only fishing. So, I know I have a lot of guys here that listen to it. This is a really cool design shirt. Not only do you get your camo pattern, but you get in that built-in, rather than a hood, you have a built-in neck gaiter, which I actually like better.
Yeah. And this one actually has a hood too. You can't see it here. So you get both with
right.
this.
Nice.
This was our first one. Yeah. And this is an SPF. So it's got all the right things for a fisherman. We try to do it right. So it's SPF 40. It's a wicking. So it keeps you cool. If you get wet, it sheds it fast. Built-in buff and a hood. So you can, it's designed for a fisherman, but like I said, it says Swamp. We'll see what we do in the future, but this was our first kind of putting our foot in the wall, and we've gotten really good feedback. We didn't order too many of these, so Brad, I'm going to send you one so you can check it out. But awesome. Yeah, I love think we'll that. Do this. When I first when I first started, swamp buck deer hunting was the biggest spend in the industry, right? The man years ago, every as the populations have gotten a little bit older, and I think it's been harder to, there's not as much public land to hunt anymore, so it pushes people into smaller areas for public land, which creates kind of bad experiences, and that's too bad that's happening, right? When I was a kid hunting with my dad, who was the original swamp buck, that's how the name came to me. We used to just pull up to a farm, right, and we would ask if we could drive their woods, right? And this was in Jim Falls,
sure.
Wisconsin. And the farmer probably knew the family, and sure, why don't you go drive it? And we'd set up standers, which I was the stander, wearing terrible orange clothing that was, like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So cold, hands are cold, feet are cold, body's barely warm because I got this big, terrible outfit on. And my dad would go drive the swamps. We drive the swamps. We drive the nastiest stuff, right? Well, that kind of hunting don't happen that much anymore. It's all, those days are kind of past us. So, so the gear is important so you can stay on stand a long time. I don't think it's necessarily worse for the experience, but it's definitely worse for keeping hunters in because there's less land for them to hunt, right? It's kind of become, fishing's now surpassed hunt as far as the spend in America. So that's something we'll add to the line a little bit next spring. We're actually looking at a few things already the line. So when spring comes, we'll be ready to launch a few more fishing items.
it's always nice when you can, rather than have like spread out, diversify. I mean, yes, it's still clothing, but now you're working on more. I mean, turkey hunting in spring, sure, but that's a really short season. I mean, in Wisconsin, it's
It
short.
is.
Now you go around the country, you have obviously every season gets longer, right? But I mean, you get those midsummer, it's like that's really hard on when you're only selling camo. I buy a lot of hunting stuff throughout the summer. I do. I'm constantly checking out new gear and this, but not everyone is. A lot of people like summertime, we're fishing. I'm not even thinking about hunting. And then come
Yep.
September, it's, oh, now I probably should get some new camo. But there's that whole May through September window where it's like, what are we doing?
Yep. No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And that's an easy, I mean, the technology for fabrics for fishing are the really right. It's pretty easy lifting if you're a hardcore hunting company like we are, where you have all this, you know, insulated stuff and lightweight stuff and durable, blah blah blah. Fishing's easy, you know. It has to just have the SPF, wick well, and then be comfortable and fun, right? This stuff is
Right.
it's really nice. I think you'll like it.
I know you had some long sleeve shirts at Bowfest, some long sleeve fishing shirts there, and they were really nice. They were right up there with anything else I had by any other major manufacturer for sure. I mean, the feel was there. They were lightweight. They gave you enough protection where you don't have to worry about getting burnt because you got the SPF 40. It felt like it would breathe really well. And it didn't feel like it would stick to you either, which I have some shirts that will just like kind of hang on you, which drives me crazy. And again, you had that fit, which gives you enough function, but isn't like a dress.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. And a lot of people wear them for, like, my family. When I say a lot of people, my family loves to wear them for like swim shirts even, right? Because they don't do exactly what you said. They don't, like, a lot of swim shirts are a little bit constrictive, and then they kind of hang on you, you know, and this fabric doesn't. So we actually make our lightweight hoodies, which are, again, for kind of early season bow. They have the thumb holes for your sleeve, and then it's a hoodie, so you could put a buff on, put the hood up, and it could be a really lightweight gear for, you know, some hot weather areas. And that's made out of the same exact material.
All right. I think we got a picture of that pretty much right here, already lined up from your Instagram of some of your lightweight.
Yep, that's the lightweight outfit right there. Yep, that's what we use for turkey and really for early season bow. And then for our, you know, the people down south who don't have to have 3 different layers of camo like we do up here in the north,
right?
That's what they can use year round. You know, it really it breathes really well too, right? Which we don't think about that much because we're worried about being cold. But that breathability is so important because we don't want to get wet underneath it, right? Because that's when you're not going to be in stand long once you start sweating. And if that stays on you, yeah.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, especially when you really start to get cold. I mean, I'm super picky on my base layers because whatever's right next to my skin has to breathe properly and keep me warm. And I am super picky on those.
Yep. Yep. No, same here. I mean, I wear these shirts here, but they're not really thermal. So I love wearing a good, like some Under Armour 2.0s, you know, and so you have a little thermal layer, but it also breathes and gets the sweat off of you and then wicks it away. And then you have a bigger thermal layer and then your outer layer. And you build it that way. You can stand a long time.
Especially because you can layer as you go in and out of the field too. So you don't, like you said, you don't get all sweaty. And especially when you have those, at least in mid-October, I mean, you'll have days where you're going in the morning and it's like frost on the ground and you're sitting on stand, it's cold, and it takes a good few hours before it starts to warm up, but then it could still hit 60 on that day. And then by that point, you want to get down into another layer because even lightweight stuff starts to get warm at times.
Yep. Yeah. But 2 years ago, I was down to I mean, if I would have had camo underwear, I would have camo underwear because it was so hot. It was 72 degrees. So I was down to the base layer only. And and that's a good thing I had it planned that way, right? I had my base layer,
Right.
then with the lightweight layer to go. And it's all camo on camo. And that's why we build it that way. It's tough. It's tough living up here. You know, we gotta have gear that meets these weird conditions. We'll float 20, 30 degrees in a day sometimes, right?
That in our bow and just in archery can be crazy because in the middle of October, you can have a weekend where it's in the 60s and 70s still. And the following year, you can be in the same middle of October, and I'm wearing clothing that's heavier than I'm wearing gun season because it's highs in the teens.
Yep.
I remember that. I think it was 3 years ago during the rut. I went out and bought a whole new camo setup because I had nothing warm enough to archery hunt it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that happened last year. If you remember, we got that spell mid-October. I was in Buffalo County leaving because I had all my gear, right? So I was testing everything. So I was set, but we had people in camp that were not prepared for that cold. So I was selling / letting people use all the heavy gear because they were coming from, we had people from Vermont, people from Colorado, and some of them didn't have everything, right? So you just,
Sure.
that's the challenge. It's challenging about being a company too. You want to offer a lot of options, but not too many options. Our first year we had blaze orange. First year of the functional stuff, we had blaze orange stuff as well. We had the white pattern. Just last year we still had the white pattern. I still have a few left, and that white pattern looks great. But I just wanted to focus. I want to focus. My core is my deer hunters, my archery hunters. So I didn't want to get spread out too far. So this year, that's what all we're doing, and investing in the quality and making sure we have the right features on our product.
Absolutely. I'm not going to try to talk you back into it, but that white product, there might, and I know I'm a duck hunter. I am. There might be a serious late and early snow goose like when there's still snow on. I mean, that might be a phenomenal pattern for some of those guys, to be honest. Yeah. And I don't know if you ever thought of that market, but
yeah,
that's a big market. There's guys that travel
in our white. We probably get the most compliments. If you look at, we were just at the Chippewa or the Northern Wisconsin State Fairgrounds for the Wisconsin Sports Show, and our number 1 and number 2 sellers, not dollar wise, but just volume wise, meaning how many items we sold, were the red, white, and blue, which we always do. We have a red, white, and blue camo, which people love.
I was just gonna pull that up actually. Yeah, I got it ready to go right now.
That's always sells really good, and So we have a short sleeve now, which we learned from Bowfest, Brad. We only had stuff at Bowfest. It was so hot. Everybody's like, I would buy this if you had a short sleeve. So since we've seen each other in Bowfest, we have now short sleeve, right? That's how fast we were able to move.
Right.
So this is actually a ladies cut too. So this is our first time we've had a ladies cut, and now we offer it in this and then in our black as well. But then we have the white pattern, which is in the middle here, and then it's full white. And these two are of our casual camo. Those two are the most popular. So that just a really good breakup, right? And if you back off like 20 feet, you just completely disappear.
Yeah, for the
in a snow background, right?
Right. And I can see that for the predator hunters. I could see predators hunters jumping all on that. I mean, that's especially or any like late season waterfowl field hunters as well. I mean, I'm always looking for a good snow camo pattern, and there aren't many. A lot of the snow patterns are. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with old school patterns, but there is not a lot of designer technology in a lot of that white stuff. A lot of times, I mean, a lot of it's still. No. I mean, it's like painter suits.
No, that's what you see. A lot of them are just painter suits. Hey, wear whatever you want and just put this over it. Well, that's that's not how we like to wear it, right? So, well, maybe I'll have to send you one of those, and you can get some field testing for me. But I'm serious. We get a ton of great feedback. So that just keeps encouraging us, right? It keeps encouraging us to invest and try to dabble a little bit. Like I was saying earlier, we started out with just an idea to get into hunting. right?
Right.
Um, and I don't know if you want to pull up the pictures of my dad there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It kind of shows how this is a typical, very common in Wisconsin. The kind of deer hunting history or tradition that we get into here. But I think people get a kick out of it. If for those who aren't able to see it, it's on our website too, just an about swamp buck. But that first picture up there is my dad. He's a young man there on the left. Grandpa shoots a buck and it freezes, right? Because it's bitter cold. And
Right.
what do you do? What do you do with a buck that's frozen? You stand, I guess you stand with your family. So that's my uncle, my aunt, and my dad there. Well, fast forward. So that's a classic, right? That's
Right.
way back, in 1958, we think, right?
Okay.
Then fast forward several years. So here's my dad. Same thing happens, right? We got this nice little buck that was hit, and dad harvested in winter Wisconsin, and it freezes. He's got it hanging from the tree. Didn't cut it up yet. Didn't butcher it yet, right? It fell. And it fell just like you see in the picture on the left there. It just fell so it looked like it was alive. So he has the same fun that he had back when he was when he was a child. It takes pictures like this with it, and these are legendary pictures. My dad's since passed, but he's the one who introduced hunting to us, and he was alive still when we started the business, and he just loved what we were doing, and I think he'd be shocked to see how far it's come. Not that we're anything big yet. And sure, we have aspirations, but our goal was just to have a little company that could allow us to explore the hunting space and be part of it, and maybe make our passion our work, and we're on our way. And I'm pretty proud of where we're at and where we could go. And I appreciate your feedback too. We fishing, snow camo, all these things are really easy for us to do, and we've already dabbled a little bit.
Right.
So that's the nice thing about camo, right?
Right.
It really can go so many different ways.
That, and you have those you have those partners where you can change things, do quick turnarounds, smaller order volumes. It gives you the ability to test different markets slightly as well that other companies can't. Where you're gonna be like, let's give this a shot, see if this grabs any traction, and this one's kind of slow. And then you do those cool giveaways at all those shows, which just bring people by and everything else, and great exposure for you. And you'd be like, we could always throw these as a giveaway, but let's try this a little bit. And you're not, and I'm not like, you're not necessarily throwing anything away because you're using it for additional marketing, but you're able to do such small things. Like you're able to test these different things and find these little niches. And then but you're able to still create this high quality product for your traditional, not traditional archery, but your core focus of archery hunting and deer hunting, and even gun season with a little blaze orange on top.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and actually you brought up traditional hunters. So we actually have, because Jay Gregory is a traditional hunter. And when we met him and started sponsoring the group, he would wear his traditional gear underneath and wear my vest over. And in some of the, social media is a tough place, right? Some of the social media fans are like, "Hey Jay, you're selling out. Now you got a new camo company sponsoring you, so now you got to push their camo." And he's like, "Well, I'm still wearing my flannel. I need an extra layer, and I wanted something that has some weatherproofing." So I told him, I said, "Hey Jay, I don't want you to give up your traditional image. Let's design a flannel, so we actually designed our traditions line now, which is a flannel jacket made for archery hunters that like that type of look. So we have an orange, a gray, and a green, and those have been wildly popular too. And so again, just to your point, you got something that somebody had an idea. Hey, let's see what we can do. So now we have a swamp buck, wild outdoors edition flannel jacket.
Well, if it wouldn't have been so hot out, I looked numerous times at those flannels and I almost bought one. I just couldn't bring Bowfest was so miserably hot. I just couldn't bring myself to buy a flannel shirt during 90-degree sitting around under tiny little bits of shade on asphalt show. I just couldn't do it. I'm like,
I was the only one in that whole place that was praying for like a cold snap. I'm like, if a cold snap hits, we are going to crush it this weekend.
I mean, it was a fun show. I mean, it was a great show. It really was. I mean, it's like every show, there's always places you can improve and everything else, but it was such a unique and cool, like entire like shoot though. Like having a 3D archery shoot going up and down a ski hill and having terrain to deal with and everything else and different shooting angles. And then having vendors there for support. You had your major bow manufacturers. You were there. I was there with New Canoes. So you had all these different vendors there as well. It was a really cool experience, which I can see it growing into something even bigger.
Yeah, no, for those of you, I'm sure you talked to another podcast, but for me, that could be like a family type event every year that people commit to. If you're a bow hunter, especially, it's pretty cool. And I think they'll make the changes. You know, you and I talked offline, you know, about some of the changes they need to make it better. But I think they will. I think they're very open to that. I mean, that's a very unique experience. And I can't wait to go back next year. I think it's going to be even better.
I agree. I think that's just going to grow. Well, let's make sure everybody knows how to find everything about Swamp Buck.
Yeah. So right now, the best way to get us, our website is fully active, and we update that as soon as we get new products, and that happens, you know, quite a bit. Well, you know, we try to keep it up to date. So that's swampbuckcamo.com, and Camo is CAMO. We don't use the U, so swampbuckcamo.com. And then we're on Facebook and Instagram as well, so you can find us there. And we're fairly active on social media, but we really let the wild outdoors do most of our interactive posts, and then we share a lot of their hunts. So they're really our biggest promoters right now. Great group of guys. So if you get a chance to watch them, they're on the Sportsman's channel. They have their own website, but I think they're running the Sportsman's channel Instagram like today, you know, so they're very active in social media, and great guys. Again, been a true blessing to get to work with them. And hopefully you'll see us more and more. You know, we'll continue to make investments in some, not just in our product, but also in awareness, so we can get our name out there. Because right now we're just a small little Wisconsin company with big dreams.
But that's a great place to start, though. I mean, it's Wisconsin, so I'm partial. I live here, but I mean, that small company. I mean, it just allows you to focus and make those changes, like you've already said, and we've already touched on, and grow consistently. I mean, and that's key. Like obviously, like you want to grow. Everyone wants to grow their business, grow their brand, grow their persona, but it allows you to grow in a way where you can continue to make a high quality product that has direct feedback from hunters and continues to evolve, rather than growing super fast and then being stuck in this little box where you're able to like never be in the box. You're able to constantly evolve, which is huge. And it allows you to like, and it actually is a really similar to the show I did with Southern Light LED, and how like he brought up, he's like, I was able to constantly bring in new technology, and that's how I stayed ahead of the pack, because I didn't buy 20,000, 30,000, manufacture all these lights. He would just do it, and kind of like what you do. I mean, It's the same thing where you can constantly, if a new fabric material comes out next in the middle of winter, you have a new fabric material that comes out, and everyone's like, holy cow, this could be amazing. A lot of these bigger manufacturers, they're not going to throw away all their inventory. They might have enough inventory to make it all the way through 2022. They might not put out that material to 2023, or maybe some limited release. Whereas you can be like, this replaces everything we've had. Like, this is the most amazing technology ever that came out. You can have a whole new line in 2 months, not even 2 months, probably.
Yep.
Right.
No, you're exactly right. And right now, you know, if you look, our pricing is really reasonable, you know, because we're direct, right? I mean,
right.
I have my write-up, and that's it, right? We're not in Cabela's, probably never be in Cabela's, right? Because they don't need me. They'll just copy my pattern. If I got big enough, they'll just copy my pattern and make it cheaper than I can make it, right? And,
right.
You know, that's the model. I get it. It is what it is. I'm hoping that we can work with some big box shops that are maybe a little bit less risky like that, where they can just, be a margin company and just copy me and take over. So we'll see what happens. But right now, we're just you can work direct with us, and I think it's a really good product, and we'll stand behind it. And it's really, really at a very reasonable cost. We're not looking to, create the next, I'd love to charge $600 and be a Sitka type line. And that's great stuff too. I use Sitka as a comparison all the time, but not to bash it. I think it's phenomenal stuff, but I also know that they're making a pretty good margin there. So there's room somewhere for a manufacturer like me to have a product that's striving to be as good as that at a lower cost.
No, it's right. And I don't have any Sitka gear, and it's not that I'm not willing to spend the money on it. I'm not willing to spend the money on it. I mean, it's not that I can't afford. I could buy it if I wanted to. I mean, I've got way too many thousands of dollars wrapped up in my duck hunting boat. Like I could afford $800 waders if I really wanted $800 waders, right?
Right.
I just can't justify spending that kind of money on something. And even if it really is that good, it's still at a price point where I just can't wrap my mind around that. Yep. So your price point is great for the average hunter that isn't necessarily, because you're always going to have the people that are like stuck on a name brand, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's a status symbol as much to them as it is function. But you're going to have guys like me, and I'd say, I don't know, 80%, maybe more of us out there, where if we could find something that's got an amazing quality at a price that doesn't just like still gives us fuel money to go out and chase deer and chase birds and go enjoy our adventure and to make that experience. Yep. I'd much rather have that.
Yep. No, I think all of us, would rather spend the money on the adventure. Right. Like you were saying earlier, right? That's what we're in, is for the experience, and there's money that you have to pay for the experience. So if your gear doesn't have to cost you a house payment, that's a good thing too.
Exactly. Well, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I'm going to give the next little bit to you, whoever you want to thank, any shout outs you want to give. The floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you. First of all, this has been great. I enjoyed talking to you at BowFest and talking to you and communicating with you leading up to this. So this is our first opportunity to really get a live type of audience like this. So, or recording of it. So it's really cool. I mean, thankful for the opportunity. And I'll just thank all those that we've met especially the last couple of shows. We've had so many people stop by the booth, and people have so many questions. Where have you guys been? I've never heard of you guys. I like your pattern like this. It's such a easy conversation to have with people of like mind, again, when we're talking to hunting people. And most of our shows have been in Wisconsin, Minnesota, really the Midwest, and just salt of the earth people. So thanks to everybody that stopped by the booth and all the comments. And I will thank, since you give me the opportunity, thank you for it. My family, who puts up with this craziness of having two careers, a legitimate career, and then this little passion play of ours here that we're trying to do with Swamp Buck. So thanks to them for their patience and then and support, but also to the Wild Outdoors crew too. If you guys, again, I can't say enough about them. They have made a big difference in establishing my credibility as a brand in the business.
It's all, I mean, having guys that, especially at that level, which that's what they do, right? They hunt, they film, they're out in the field, they're torture testing your gear. That's exactly what they're doing. And when you get to a level of that type of show and production quality, you kind of can go wherever you want. You can pretty much be like, no, I don't like it. I'm going to go approach these guys and see what their gear's about. So if there's, to stick with it, to use your gear, to hunt out of it, that says a lot about the quality and the effectiveness of the pattern right there.
Yep. And I think the people who last that long, they're 31 years, in the business. So one of the longest running shows, actually, they've had and Jay's got a ton of stories about relationships with the big companies and how it's kind of a dog eat dog world. I'm a small
Sure.
company. I'm able to stay below that, and stay out of that mess,
Right.
and just treat him good. And he's been good to me. And now we created this traditions line together. So we'll see where it goes. But it's even if it doesn't go anywhere, we're still able to talk hunting all the time and get more time hunting, and that's a good thing.
It's always a good thing to be out in the field, out in the woods, out on the water, fishing as well, because you're working into the fishing. I mean, all of that is just more experiences added and enjoying with family, friends, even just yourself to like take that mental escape from your day to day. I mean, it's all just huge and just really kind of feeds your soul. So, I mean, the more you can do it, in my opinion, the better, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. It's been a super informative show. I've seen your product in person. I know for all those that might be leery out there, I mean, you already touched base on it. I mean, if they're not, I mean, you have sounds like free shipping back, right? I mean, if they're not happy with it.
Yep, absolutely. We'll stand behind we stand behind our product. We want to make sure everybody has a good experience. Again, it's the only way to build your brand. I get one negative review, and I don't have the big deny. I don't have that many reviews out there, so I can't. And I want people to be happy, even if it means a full credit and ship it back. That's fine.
So, I mean, right there, I mean, that says, I mean, this not only says that you stand behind your product. I mean, that's just phenomenal customer support, and it gives people that confidence where I'm going to try it and be like, you know what, the fit's not quite there. Can I try this size? Or it's just really isn't for me. And everyone, I mean, you're always going to have that one person which it just doesn't work for. I mean, you're just going to have that. But I mean, to take it back and give that credit and be like, your happiness is more important than the sale at this point. Like, because I want my brand, like I want people to like know my customer service is huge. I mean, that right there is just a ton of confidence, like not only in your product, but like in your customer support side of it.
Yep. No, that's what we're going for. It's so simple too, right? I mean, and we've all had those customer experiences outside, just any retail item, right? Where you get poor customer service, you never go back. And what do you want to do? You want to tell everybody about it too, right? And it's so simple now that this is, I control this customer experience, right? This is our company. I control it. I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen. It's so easy to do. It's not that hard to treat people good.
And that is a higher selling point to me than most things. I mean, yes, I want durability. Yes, I want quality, but if I don't have the customer support to match it, it's not a company I necessarily want to do business with. Because if I'm nothing more than a paycheck and yes, obviously, I mean, we all work to make money. I work for a company. Our goal is to make money. Every company's goal is to make money based off of some sort of product sale or labor. I mean, that's just how the world works. That's how you get paid. You get paid for your labor, which whatever you're doing is either selling or making or fixing something gets paid for. I mean, that's just how the world works. But to not just be focused on that side and also want to make sure that your customer is happy at the end of the day is huge.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. And hopefully we can keep control. Right now, that's our motto, right? And we own it. And hopefully as we get bigger, we'll keep that. And I'll certainly do my best to keep that as one of the foundations of how we're going to do business, until at least when as long as I'm running things, that's how we'll do it. Again, it's so easy. It's so easy to just take care of people.
Right. And it's such a huge, large key component to the overall success of a business.
Yeah. No, great, man.
Well,
Jason,
this
has been fantastic, brother. I really appreciate the time.
I appreciate you coming on. It's been a great show. To all my listeners out there, again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for tuning in every other week. And then go check out Swamp Bunk Camo. You know what? I don't bring on a lot of products. I don't. I mean, mostly I talk to other hunters, a lot of bird dog guys, deer hunters, everything else. So a product show for me is not normal. So if I'm doing this, like I saw it in person, I own some of it already. I'm going to I'm going to start replacing some of my other stuff with his Camo. I mean, it is a phenomenal local small company out of Wisconsin, and I wouldn't bring them on if I didn't truly think it was gonna. It is the product quality it is. So check them out. As always, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, Brad Hurlebus Outdoors. Instagram is Wisconsin_hunting_fishing. And yeah, until next time, everyone. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and_fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and_fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com